Hey guys, it's Nik the Booksmith. Welcome back, welcome back. I hope everybody is doing great today. Sorry it's been a minute, like a week and a half I think. And I know you don't want an excuse, you're like, just get on with the video.
Well, too bad, you're getting one anyway.
It's just been one of those, time periods where it's like everything falls into 1 week. Like I had 3 doctor's appointments. It's just like everything falls into this one time period and everything else gets all messed up and put on the back burner. So there's my excuse, whether you like it or not. But the good news is that in betwixt all my other appointments and whatnot, I was able to put together a journal. And I was inspired by my friend Hallie, who reminded me, or informed me, I guess I should say. I'm not this put together. She told me that it was going to be Jane Austen July, which, that's awesome. I love Jane Austen. Well, I love the idea of Jane Austen. She's very wordy. So I've seen some movies, I've read some pieces of some books, but her books are very long. And, it takes 3 paragraphs to describe the lace on somebody's dress. And my ADHD brain has absolutely no patience for such things. However, if they ever come out with a truncated or abridged version of Jane Austen's novels, I guarantee you I will be right on that. At least it got me back into making a journal, right? All right, so what I ended up doing was I had to create my own cover because I did not have a book cover that I thought would be appropriate or would fit, my vision. So I ended up making one, which is fine. The covers, the hard covers are made out of mat board. So it's like it's a medium weight chipboard. Hold on. I forgot to turn my phone off. Leave me alone, people. Okay. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so it's like a medium weight chipboard. The graphic on the front and the back is just one I made in Photoshop, so there's that. The spine is a piece of some eco-printed fabric that I did, I think year before last. It's a piece of this one that I did with the Virginia creeper and the fern leaves, fronds. So I took my scissors to it, which took me a minute because I was like, do I want to cut this up? Do I want to leave it alone? I cut it up. I ended up using a technique similar to what I did in a video that I made not too long ago about using the book covers but making a new spine, like old book covers with new spine. So that's what I did. I used that technique, except instead of using the paper for the spine, I used fabric. However, if you guys would like to see a version of this exact kind of style with the chipboard and the fabric spine, just let me know and I can make a video about that. On the spine, I did sew like a little cameo with some beads, and I sewed on a piece of just random fabric just to make it look like a little bit of patchwork. The title on this front cover, it looks like it's debossed. I mean, you can't feel it, it's not, but I photoshopped it to make it look like it's like inset. Okay, so I'm not going to go through like every single page because as much as this looks fluffy and like I put something on every single page, I didn't. Those of you that have been with me for a minute will know my raggedy trick, and for those of you that don't, there will be videos underneath this video that talks about raggeties and what those are, and I used that technique. But what I did do was I created a Jane Austen DigiKit, and I used some pages from that. Scrapbook covered inside. And this is a piece of very antique onion skin, and I also created a page of Jane Austen quotes, and so I added a few of those intermingled amongst the pages. The DigiKit pages have, like, this is like a woodcut that they used to use to print pictures in books, and I used a little bit of that. I made a page of like decorative, let me grab them. I already cut it apart, but decorative paper strips. These could be used to print onto clear like mailing label paper, like the full page mailing label paper. Again, there's going to be another video underneath this one that kind of explains how to make your own washi tape out of clear mailing labels. But you could print these on that and make washi tape, or you could just print it on regular paper and then sew it or glue it or, you know, whatever rocks your world, and use it as just decorative elements too, as well. So just a couple pieces of hand-dyed ribbon that I sewed together to make a bookmark. But I just used random pages and papers, and I used the some different ribbons and scraps of fabric to be tabs that I added onto some of these pages. And there's also some metal clips. And there's one of the DigiKit pages. This is an ink drawing that a friend of mine named Natalia, and she lives in Wales, she sent me a treasure trove of pen and ink portraits, and they are fabulous. I'm like, I'm not kidding. Let me show you. She drew all of these. Gorgeous, gorgeous. I got some upside down. They're beautiful, just beautiful. She's brilliantly talented. And I've been hoarding them. I didn't want to just waste them. And I know she wants me to use them. So Natalia, I used one, if you can believe it. So thank you again. I think it looks great in this book. I also printed off some letters. This is actually a Jane Austen letter that I printed off. And I folded it kind of crooked so that it could be used as one of these raggedy type elements. You can set it anywhere you want to, but if you want it to peek out the sides, then what I usually do is I usually clip them to one of the pages, and then that way they stay a little more, you know, settled. There's another one of the Digi pages. And that one is 2. And the DigiKit will be, the Journal Pages DigiKit is at my Etsy store. And then there is also an accessory, like a Jane Austen accessories kit that has the decorative strips / washi, journal cards, the page of quotes, and the book covers. Because I couldn't fit all of the downloads into just one listing because Etsy limits how much we can, you know, upload for kits. So I separated it into journal pages and accessories. So if you are keen to doing something like that and you want to do a Jane Austen something, you can head over there and check it out if you'd like. The link is always under my videos. There's another side of the page. And there's another one with a quote on it. There's another one of the decorative strips I just sewed onto the edge of that page. Another one of the Digi pages. And another one. I thought this little Chinese vase is kind of cool with some, I put flowers in it. It didn't have flowers in it, but it does now. And I sewed some pages on. There's another one. So this is the raggedy that I made for this one. Randomness all sewn together. There's another one of the Digi pages, well, one side of it. And I printed this upside down on it because it wouldn't be me if I didn't do something upside down. And another one. And then here's another letter I put in here. Forgot to attach that to the page too. And what I did for the journal pages, along with the journal pages that have graphics on them, and they're like the decorative ones, there's also a set of pages that are just black and white that can be printed as they are, or they could be, since they're black and white, you could print them over the top of the after you print like a decorated page, you could send it back through and print lines on it. Or there is like dots, like grid dots, bullet journal type dots. And you could print them over anything, even if you have store-bought decorative journal paper that you want to use, you could print this over the top of that as well, as long as it's 8.5 by 11 or A4, whichever one you want to use. But there is an index page in case you wanted to make a commonplace type book where you are writing down your different thoughts that you want to keep track of, or just whatever information you want to keep track of. Again, if you don't know what a commonplace book is, I will put a link down below to a video I did about commonplace books. But you can, in the index, when you're writing along in your book, you can write down in the index the page number and where it is that you wrote said information that you want to keep track of. And then that way, if you're like, okay, I know I wrote that recipe down and I know it's in this book because I just wrote it, but I don't remember which page it's on, well, you can write that down. Of course, you'd have to number your pages, but that's up to you. And you can number that down, or you could use page tabs or whatever you'd like. But the index is for that kind of a reason, to write down the contents as you're filling up your book. There is also a page for like book reviews. So if you're a book reader and you do a reading journal about the books that you've read, and you would like to keep track of the books you've read, what you thought of them, when you read them, that kind of thing, there is a page that you could print out to keep track of that as well. But anyway, those accessory type pages will be with the Jane Austen Journal Pages kit, and you can use them or not use them, that is up to you. But I did throw those in there, mostly for Jane Austen July, since a lot of people are taking on the challenge of reading a Jane Austen book, or maybe they've decided they're going to read all of her books or a series of books and they want to keep track of what they've read, that kind of thing. So I've added that in with those journal pages. And then in the back, I just have this pocket that's attached to the back cover. One thing that I wanted to show you, kind of a little troubleshooting thing that I wanted to show you. There was an issue that I ran into when I was making this book, and you might run into this problem as well. And I even had the forethought to turn on the camera to show you the problem. We even have photographic evidence. So what happened is after I got everything together, the front and back covers were warped outward in, I'm going to say, an unpleasing way. And this happens. It happens. If you're going to use glue like PVA, or if you use Mod Podge or Elmer's or some kind of glue that has water in it, at some point you're going to run into this issue. Most likely. If you don't, you are a blessed, magical human being, and we all hate you for it. No, I'm kidding. We don't, but we kind of do. So if your cover is kind of curling or warping in an outward direction, there is something that you can do to try to remedy this situation. What I ended up doing was taking a piece of paper towel that was cut to the same size as the inside cover of the book. And then I took a spray bottle of water and I misted it. And I do not want it to be soppy. Not at all. Not soppy. You just want it to be damp. But you want it to be evenly damp throughout the entire paper toweling. You don't want a dry spot here and a dry spot here. Try to make sure that it is evenly damp. And then I placed this damp paper towel inside this front cover, and then I put a piece of plastic. This is just like a piece of acetate, like transparency film. You could use saran wrap. You could use a piece of a plastic drop cloth or even like a binder sheet, you know, the clear ones that you can put stuff in. It just whatever that is waterproof. Don't put a piece of paper is what I'm saying. Put something that is plastic. And then I closed it up, and I did that to the front and the back. The back cover was not warped as badly as the front, but I did it to that one too. And then I just let it sit for a minute. And if the book seems to be where the covers aren't like laying down, you can put something on it to kind of, I don't want to like squish it because that's not necessary, but just something to just hold it, you know, down like a good little sandwich. Now, because the back cover was not as cupped on the outside as the front, what I did is I let this sit for about, I'm gonna say a good hour and a half or so, and I took the piece that was in the back cover, I went ahead and I took that one out, and then I closed it back up and left the front one for like double the time. Your mileage is going to vary on this depending on the degree of whatever your cover is warping, how wet you get your paper towel, how humid it is in your house, all kinds of things. This is going to be kind of like an emergency fix situation where you're like, crap, it's warping and I hate it, and you're about to rip it apart. And I'm saying, before you rip it apart, just try this. And then I took the other one out, like I said, later. And the paper towel was dry mostly by then, but the inside of the covers were still, they were barely damp. You could still feel that. So because they were just barely damp still, I left the plastic in there because I didn't want the dampness that had transferred from the paper towel to the cover to mess up any of the inner pages. So just an FYI there. Now, don't have a heart attack when your covers get even more warped, because they will. You can expect that to happen. So they will warp even more, they will curve even more, but then after they dry, they're going to contract back in the other direction. So when you look at this book, I guess I should take all the fluff and rigmarole out of here, shouldn't I? So you can see what I'm talking about. So you can see that these book covers are flat and maybe even cup in just a tiny little bit, which is totally cool. Actually, I kind of like that. Bookbinders can tend to like that as well because they just do. And I think the reason why is because depending on where you live, there is humidity in the air, and the outside of the book may absorb some of that humidity. And if there is, like, let's say you put the paper towel on the outside of the book, it would curl in first and then it's going to warp back out when it dries. So the humidity in the air may inherently kind of pull your book covers back out a little bit. It's kind of the thing that with bookbinders, if it cups in a little bit, it's okay. But they're fine. Had I not been able to fix the covers or rewarp them or unwarp, however you want to say it, unwarp them, I would have ripped it apart. I mean, it was a lost cause. I was not going to have a book like that. It just wasn't going to happen. So it totally saved the book. Absolutely. Now, if you have the opposite problem, and let's say after you put together a book, these covers are really curled in, like in this opposite direction. There's only so much you can do without messing up your book, but it all depends on what you've done to the cover. I didn't add any embellishments. I didn't glue anything to the outside except for, just the fabric spine, but I didn't glue any embellishments or add any pictures or anything like that. So potentially, theoretically, you could do the same thing. Just know that if you have made your own book cover like I did, because I printed these images and then I attached them to the mat board, that if you put a damp paper towel on it, it may alter that a little bit depending on the type of ink your printer uses. Although I've got to say that in all of my years, out of all of the books I've ever made, I usually only have the opposite problem like I had with this book, where they were cupping out. It could be because when I glued on the outside image, I used more glue than when I glued on this inside cover liner. Or maybe it was because the mat board has two sides. So the mat board kind of has a colored side. It just seems like a different finish on that side of the mat board as opposed to the back side of the mat board. So maybe they don't absorb moisture in the same way. So whatever it was that happened, you know, if gremlins are coming and spitting on one side of your book and not spitting on the other side of your book, then you're going to have warpage. It's just the way it is. Just be wary that if it happens, that sometimes you can save it. You can fix it, which I did in this case. It was a win, total save, which was lovely. But I wanted to share with you that little disaster fixing, whatever it is. You know what I mean. And perhaps in the future, that might help you. Maybe you won't pull your hair out and the pages out of your book. That is going to be it for, for this video. I hope you liked this journal that I put together, the Sense and Sensibility covered journal for Jane Austen July. If anybody wants to take the month of July and make a Jane Austen themed journal or book of some kind, and I don't mean using any of my DigiKits, just a Jane Austen journal in general, whatever you want to make it with. If you make a YouTube video or if you post it anywhere on social media that would have a link, you can message me at Etsy with the link and I will add it to a playlist on my channel. If you are watching this in the future, which is beyond probably July, August 2023, that playlist will be listed under this video where you can click on a link and see what somebody else did or other people did with the Jane Austen July theme. For my patrons, if you go to Patreon, you'll see a little freebie for you, some stationery that I created in the Jane Austen kind of theme. So if you would like some stationery to print out, page and an envelope, head over there and download that. But other than that, I think that is it for me today. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me and letting me ramble about this book and why boards warp. I appreciate it so very much. I hope you are all having an excellent week, and I will see you really, really soon in the next video. Bye, guys.